Hi everyone! Today is going to be the final video in the wrapping up 2020 reading. So today I'm going to just go through some stats. So the Goodreads stats and then also my spreadsheet, which my spreadsheet stopped working. So that's going to be fun to try and go through. I will link all of the wrapping up 2020 videos down below. I will link the playlist if you want to go watch those. So first I'm going to go through the Goodreads one. So if I'm looking down, that's because I'm looking at it on my iPad. I'm not going to screen record it because that sounds like a lot of effort, but I'll take screenshots and put them up. So in 2020, I read 48,556 pages across 120 books. The shortest book I read was Giant Days Volume 1, which was 112 pages, and the longest one I read was The Mad Ship by Robin Hobb, which was 906. So the average book length that I read in 2020 was 404. Which I think makes sense, but it is actually down from last year where my average length was 458 pages. But I think that makes sense because this year I did try and read some graphic novels and I was reading the Wayward Children series, so there's definitely a lot more smaller books in there, but I think it makes sense that the average number of pages did go down. The most popular book that I read was The Hobbit by J.R.R. Tolkien, which over 4 million other people have shelved. And then the least popular I read was The Everyday Angel collection by Victoria Schwab, which I think makes sense because that's a collection of middle grade stories that she brought out ages ago, and it's the bind-up of them. I think the individual stories have their own as well, so I'm sure if you went and looked on them, there would be more shelves, so it makes sense that the bind-up is pretty low down. So my average rating for 2020 was 3.7 stars, which is actually down from last year where it was 3.9 stars. And the highest rated book that I read this year on Goodreads is Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. And then for my 2020 reading challenge, I had set it as 65 books and I read 120 in the end. So now on to the spreadsheet. It says here that I read a total of 48,519 pages, which I'm not sure does that match up to the Goodreads, which is confusing. So yeah, I'm 40 pages off and I don't know where that's come from, so that's fun. Let's see how many books I read each month. In January, I read 6 books, February 8, March 6, April 16, May was 9, June was 9, July was 18, August was 8, September was 9, October was 11, November was 11, and December was 9. I definitely would say that I usually average out around 9-ish, and then there's just a couple there that are very much outliers. So then if we break it down page-wise by month, so we already know that in January and March I read the least amount of books, which was 6 books in each month, and I read the most in July, which I read 18 books. But when I break it down by page count-wise, that's not actually my worst and best month. In January, I read 2,711 pages. In February, I read 3,318 pages. In March, I read 2,746 pages. In April, I read 6,031 pages. In May, I read 3,952 pages. 62 pages. In July, I read 5,606 pages. In August, I read 3,152 pages. In September, I read 4,013 pages. In October, I read 4,357 pages. In November, I read 5,014 pages. And in December, I read 4,392 pages. If we take it by page number and not by the number of books I read, January is still my worst month, but actually April was my best month. And then if we look at the age ranges I read 27 adult books, 11 middle grade books, and then the majority of my reading was YA, and I read 82 of them. You can definitely see a change in my reading throughout the year. So if we take age range, for example, if we look at the number of adult books I read in each month, I only read 1 in January, 0 in February, 2 in March, 0 in April, 1 in May, 3 in June, 3 in July, 2 in August, 5 in September, 4 in October, 3 in November, 3 in December. You can definitely see that I was picking up more and more adult books. So then if we look at genre, I read 2 classics, 15 contemporaries, 4 dystopians, 72 fantasy books, which definitely sounds about right, 7 graphic novels, 1 historical fiction, 1 horror book, 5 mysteries, 1 non-fiction, 2 paranormal, 2 romances, and 8 sci-fis. So I'm definitely a majority fantasy reader. I think that's very clear to say. The fantasy books that I read this year. So actually in January, I read 0 fantasy books, which is very rare for me. But I think you can definitely see that I had great intentions of trying to mix up the number of genres I read. So I definitely did that in January. I read a contemporary, 2 dystopians, a historical fiction, and 2 mysteries. So you can definitely see that I was trying to definitely change it up, and then as the months went on, I continued to read more and more fantasy. So the months that I read the most fantasy was August, October, and November, where I read 8 fantasies. And obviously the one where I read the least amount of fantasy was January, where I read 0. And then let's break it down by star rating. I had 0 DNFs, I had 4 1 stars, 0 1.5 stars, 16 2 stars, 2 2.5 stars, 23 stars, 8 3.5 stars, 39 4 stars, 5 4.5 stars, and 26 5 stars. So now the very last thing we're going to talk about is my average rating for each month. So as I said earlier, my average for the year was 3.7 stars. So now if we go through the month by month. So in January, my average rating was 4.08 stars. In February, my average rating was 4.25 stars. In March, my average rating was 4. In April, my average was 3.5. In May, my average rating was 3. In June, my average rating was 3.72. In July, my average rating was 3.39. In August, my average rating was 4.06. In September, my average rating was 3.5 stars. In October, my average rating was 3.68. In November, my average rating was 3.18. And in December, my average rating was 3.78. We were judging by average star rating. My best month of the year was February, and my worst month of the year was May. This wasn't a very detailed stats. My spreadsheet that I'm using this year, I'm using 2 spreadsheets. I'm using G from Book Roast's Call Pile, and I'm also using Ali from Hardback Hoarders, also her one. So those are a lot more detailed. So next year when I do this, I will have a lot more interesting stats to discuss, like where the authors are from, whether they're male, female, non-binary, whether there's multiple authors, all of that kind of stuff. So next year I'll definitely have a lot more interesting stats to discuss, but for now, just the most basic ones is all I have for you, and I do hope you at least enjoy these. And tell me, what is your best reading month? Whether you judge it by the amount of books you read, the page count that you read, or the average rating, what do you think was your best reading month? Thank you guys so much for watching. I do hope you enjoyed. If you did, subscribe, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye!